Ohayo, konnichiwa, konbanwa. Hi everyone, welcome back to JFTN, Japan Fishing Tackle News. Today, I'm reviewing the SHIMANO SLX DC XT 2022, a mid-range bait casting reel packed with DC technology. Please note that this product review represents the personal opinions of the JFTN staff and is not exhaustive. We hope you take it as just one perspective among many. The SLX DC XT 2022 is an upgraded bait casting reel that was introduced in 2022 as a higher-end model of the SLX DC. I was surprised when I heard a higher version of the SLX was coming out. But what really caught my attention was that this reel has the same IDC5 brake system as the Calcutta Conquest DC, and it features the lightweight and highly responsive Magnum Light Spool 3. Despite its reasonable price, this reel seemed very promising, so I decided to buy it. In 2024, the Global Model SLX XT was released, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on the differences between them as well as my impressions of the SLX DC XT. By the way, this Shimano Pro Angler, Hata-san, is also prominently featured on the exterior of BCF stores in Australia. Let's open the box. As usual, here are the documents, including the manual and schematic, along with the reel itself. This is the new SLX DC XT 2022. Unlike other SLX models, this one has an overall gunmetal finish. The signature blue theme color is only used as an accent in two places. The metallic look gives it a premium feel and a stylish appearance. It's also a 70 size reel, so it's very compact. The rotation feels exactly like you'd expect from Shimano, extremely smooth with almost no rotational noise. Shimano reels have excellent gear meshing, and the micro-module gear operates very smoothly. Plus, it's light. The SLX DC XT also has a hatch that opens by moving the slide lever at the bottom. This lever is really stiff. Oh, I need to set the brake dial to open first. Inside the brake system and spool, you can choose modes for nylon, fluoro, or braid line. And here's the Magnum Light Spool 3. It has a shaft, but it's incredibly light. Here's the Global Model SLX DC. Since it's a 150 size reel, the body is noticeably larger. I feel the XT is a better fit for us Japanese anglers, but if the 150 size fits your hand well, the XT might feel a bit small. Personally, I prefer the XT in both design and feel. Let's take it outside and give it a try. By the way, I'm not that experienced with bait casting reels. I'm reviewing this reel from the perspective of a beginner choosing their first bait caster. I don't have many bait casting rods, so I've paired it with a Zodias rod. The red and blue theme colours do clash a bit, but since the blue is quite subtle, it's not a total mismatch. I'm starting with a Jardo product, the Erda Zero Invator, a 9-gram sea bass lure with a shallow diving range of 5 to 20 centimetres. The SLX DC XT is supposed to handle lighter lures better, so I'm starting with something under 10 grams. Now, for the first cast. Wow, it flies nicely. I've set the brake to 3 to start, and since I'm using braid, I've set the internal dial to P. The DC sound is great. This is what a DC reel should sound like. Although I didn't mention it in my review, it sounds even better than the previous SLX DC model. However, the brake feels strong. With such a lightweight lure, there's a noticeable sense of resistance. Let's try setting the brake to 2. I was curious, so I tried a no thumbing cast. As expected, no thumbing on splashdown didn't work. The spool kept spinning after the lure hit the water. But as long as I thumb the spool at splashdown, even a beginner like me can cast without any issues. Now, let's try with the brake set to 1. Oops, immediate backlash. For someone still getting used to it, practicing with the brake at around 2 seems like a good idea. By the way, the retrieve is incredibly smooth. Just casting and retrieving is fun because of how light and smooth it is. I've heard that the balance between the rod and reel isn't as critical with baitcasters as it is with spinning setups, and this combination works just fine. It's easy to cast and control. Next up is the ValleyHill Bevy Popper, a very light 4-gram lure. Let's see if a baitcasting beginner like me can cast something this light. The break is set to 3. Wow, it actually casts. While long distances might be tough due to the line weight and rod capacity, targeting nearby spots and using a dog walking technique to entice fish should work just fine. However, with the break set to 3, the spool feels a bit heavy, as if the initial speed is being held back by the spool. So I'll try again with the break set to 2. It didn't work. I think it might have been due to my poor casting technique. I can tell my bait casting form isn't quite right yet. If you're using lightweight lures, it seems like it's best to stick with break 3 and keep practicing your casting. Next, I've selected a slightly heavier lure, the ValleyHill Graver Hi 68S, 11 grams. It's a sinking minnow designed for sea bass. I've set the break to 2. As expected, with this weight, it's much easier to cast, especially for someone like me who isn't that familiar with bait casting reels. It flies smoothly. Still, the evolution of baitcaster breaks is incredible. When I first used a baitcasting reel, almost 30 years ago, I struggled with constant backlashes, even with monofilament line, and eventually switched to spinning reels only. Compared to that, the advancements in tackle are amazing. Of course, the introduction of lightweight braid lines and reduced spool weight contribute to this, but it's still impressive that we now have computer-controlled brakes. I still remember the shock I felt when I re-entered the fishing world and heard that distinctive DC sound for the first time. Next, I'm increasing the weight with the Garuru Products Erda Garuru F132, a 20-gram subsurface lure. Since my main field is saltwater, I'm focusing on reviewing saltwater lures. Even though this weight is close to the rod's upper limit, casting it is no problem at all. It casts nicely with good distance. Honestly, isn't it amazing that someone who barely uses baitcasting reels can cast this well? When using a baitcaster, we tend to focus on the brakes, but the retrieve is also incredibly smooth. There's just one thing that's a bit disappointing. There's no drag clicker sound. As an angler, don't you want to hear that drag sound? When the drag clicks, it tells you that you've hooked a good-sized fish, and it's exciting. Without the drag clicker, you might not even realize the drag is running, and you could think you're reeling in, but in reality, you're not. It's also a bit lonely when you've got a good-sized fish, but no satisfying drag sound. For a reel in the XT's price range, I would have liked to have drag sound. Now, let's compare it with the Global Model SLX DC. Price-wise, considering the yen-dollar exchange rate at the time, there wasn't much difference in the actual selling price. However, the XT is technically the higher-end model compared to this SLX DC. Starting with the break set to 3, and the first lure I used, the Erda Zero Invator. The casting went well, but maybe it's just me being Japanese, but the 150 size body of the SLX DC feels a bit bulky and heavy. The spool size is different too, so with this 9-gram lure, even with braid, the spool feels a bit heavy. Since it seems like the spool isn't spinning freely, I'll set the break to 2. Uh-oh, backlash. It seems like break setting 2 is too loose for me. It could be the break tuning, but I feel like there's a significant difference between break 3 and 2. With break 3, the lure feels like it's being pulled by the spool, but with break 2, the spool spins too fast right from the start, leading to backlash. The feel of break 3 was similar on both reels, so maybe the break tuning on the SLX DC is much weaker at setting 2. I'll switch back to break 3 and try again. Yes, this works better. Between these two reels, it seems that the difference in size directly impacts their handling. The larger 150 size SLX DC is more suited for heavier lures, while the 70 size XT is better for lighter lures. The DC brake on the SLX DC feels like it has a more significant change between each setting, with noticeable differences with just a single dial adjustment. For instance, with brake 3, there's a feeling of the lure being pulled, but with no thumbing, it backlashed upon splashdown. The brake on the XT at setting 3 also feels strong, but it seems slightly less forceful compared to the SLX DC. The SLX DC's brake has a more pronounced difference between strong initial acceleration and weaker braking towards the end of the cast, while the XT feels a bit more balanced in its braking. Maybe it's due to the spool difference, but the XT seems to achieve slightly better casting distance. Although I didn't capture it on video, the Garuru at 20 grams landed just a bit farther with the XT. Conclusion: the SHIMANO SLX DC XT is exceptional, even comparable to the Zillion. This footage was actually filmed back in 2022, just a few months after the XT was released, and I've been using it consistently for the past 2 years. After gaining more experience with baitcasting, I can confidently say that the trouble-free performance of the XT is on par with the Daiwa Zillion. In my case, I've found the XT to be significantly less prone to issues compared to Daiwa's baitcasting reels with shafted spools. As someone who isn't fully accustomed to baitcasting, I've noticed that when bust-ups happen, I sometimes lose my casting form due to excitement or urgency. However, even in those situations, both the Zillion and this XT allow me to cast with confidence. The more I use it, the more I want to keep using it, and this confidence has made the XT one of my go-to reels. For anglers who fish less than once a week, knowing you can cast confidently during those rare opportunities is invaluable. On the other hand, I must admit that with the Global Model SLX DC, I feel slightly less secure. After extended use, the subtle differences in the DC brakes between these two models become apparent. The SLX DC XT offers just a bit more refined control over the spool's rotation, which makes a difference in tricky situations. Of course, this makes sense since the XT is the higher-end model. In essence, it feels like a reel that allows you to handle lighter lures with DC braking, something previously only possible with SVS. Now, comparing it to the SLX XT 2024, the 24 XT is interesting because, despite having a 150 size body, the spool diameter is 1 mm smaller, but it's 2 mm wider, increasing the line capacity. This gives it a spool that feels similar to the SLX DC. Unlike the MGL spool, the 24 XT seems more suited for heavier lures, similar to the SLX DC, and features more blue accents throughout. The brake system on the 24 XT is SVS Infinity, which allows for finer adjustments but requires careful tuning, making it less beginner-friendly. So, if you're looking for precise brake settings, the SLX XT 2024 might be the right choice. However, if you want a trouble-free experience with lighter, finesse fishing, the SLX DC XT 2022 is your best bet. It's like choosing between a manual and an automatic car, or between a compact and a full-sized vehicle. I hope this video serves as a useful reference, and I believe selecting gear that you personally like and find good will enhance your fishing experience. I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. Once the channel becomes monetized, we might even consider holding a giveaway. If you have any requests for reviews of specific items, please let me know in the comments. However, please note that reviews will generally be limited to JDM, Japanese domestic market gear. I hope you get a little closer to catching your dream fish. Thank you for watching.